Rest up. Sweet dream. Getting drowsy.
So, this is Moira, the genetic evolutionist or whatever that everyone seems to really love, right? So Moira has been a character that's been brought up in multiple instances for being either too powerful or too weak if we're talking about the higher ranks. Depending on which way you slice it, Moira definitely feels like, as Flats would put it, a two-dimensional character in a three-dimensional game.
I don't know how to word it without being a dick. No, it's fine. Be a dick about it. Moira is a two-dimensional character in a three-dimensional game. They have healing and damage. That's it.
In a game with multiple support abilities that can change the tide of battle, like Ana's Nade, Kiriko Suzu, or Zen's Discord Orb to name a few, her kit lands her in a spot of dominating the lower ranks and then falling off around Plat. Now, that's not to say that she can't be played in ranks such as Grandmaster. In fact, many do. It's just that her kit doesn't have the game-changing power like other supports do. But even so, for the majority of Overwatch 1, she coexisted pretty nicely with the other supports, not really causing too much trouble as far as I can remember. From time to time, I would see the occasional Moira is annoying post on Reddit, but it wasn't too bad. That was until Overwatch 2 where things started to ramp up. Blizzard was looking into changing her damage orb into an enfeebling orb, or the necrotic orb if you want the other name for it, and hitting someone with this ability would weaken the enemy. So much so that it can completely negate entire ultimates.
This is full charge Orisa ult. Hold on. Full charge Orisa ult. Oh god, I missed.
And of course, in typical Blizzard fashion, they decided to scrap it due to community backlash, essentially leaving Moira untouched to what she was before into the next release. But despite staying mostly the same, and despite the balance changes with small tweaks, she remained controversial up until even now. Let's talk about that. And I suppose to understand why she's controversial, we gotta talk about her kit, which truthfully is pretty simple in nature. You have her biotic grasp on left and right click,
Did you?
her fade on shift that allows her to use a dash which turns her invincible for a couple seconds and invisible as well. The biotic orb shoots out either a healing or damage orb, slowing down near either an ally or teammate, depending on which one you're healing or damaging.
Pain is inevitable. I offer something more.
And match that with her ultimate Coalescence that shoots out one big beam of damage and healing that can damage multiple enemies and heal multiple teammates at once, and you have a pretty straightforward kit.
Amadon.
Moira's healing could be argued to be one of the best amongst the 11 supports currently in the game if her resources are saved and the person playing has a good grasp of her techs. Her raw damage output alone isn't enough to team wipe unless they're all super low, and even her ult isn't fixed for straight damage, hence why it's used as a heal and damage beam combo respectively. It's because of this rather low skill ceiling that makes Moira enjoyable to the lower skilled players and rather unsatisfying to the higher ranks. So if you put everything together, you get this two-dimensional character that's sort of in this weird bubble of not viable as a support, but also at the same time really incredibly overpowered and annoying to deal with, I guess. Especially if you switch from the casual and competitive scene, the talk of her is always a mixed bag. Ultimately though, it feels like the community has placed her in this beginner-friendly category, which in turn makes sense honestly, since her skill ceiling is arguably not as high as the other supports. When Rivals was released, Cloak and Dagger grabbed my attention pretty early on because their playstyle appeared to be one part a mirrored playstyle to Moira, another totally unique. Let's elaborate. Their kit works as such. Their passive, From Shadow to Light, allows you to switch from either Cloak or Dagger since they're technically two people. Cloak deals damage, Dagger gives healing, but also note that Dagger can deal damage, just not as much as Cloak can. Left click is Dagger's Light Force Dagger, and Cloak's Dark Force Cloak. This is going to get a little confusing, but bear with me here. Dagger's projectiles are lock-on, dealing a small amount of damage to enemies and health to teammates. Each time a dagger hits a teammate, it creates an area of healing, with anyone inside getting a small portion of health. Also note, Dagger can heal herself by just simply being near a teammate and shooting them, or even damaging an enemy. But be careful with this because this can get you killed. And Cloak's main damage is Dark Force Cloak, and it's a suck beam, if you will, similar to that of Moira, dealing chip damage over time. Their E ability is Dagger's Veil of Light Force and Cloak's Terror Cape, with Dagger's giving a small health portion and healing boost to teammates, while Cloak's giving temporary blindness and damage to enemies. Right click for Dagger is Dagger Storm, which plants down a small bubble that heals anyone inside, and Cloak's right click is Dark Teleportation, where he enshrouds his nearby allies in the Dark Force dimension, allowing them to be invisible and untargetable for a short period of time. But also note that if they shoot at any point while in the cloak, their invisibility goes away. And lastly, we have their ultimate, Eternal Bond, which both Cloak and Dagger dash 3 different times, with each dash leaving behind a substance not really specified by NetEase. This also damages enemies and heals teammates.
Lights out. Us against the world. You fight me, you fight the dark.
Now, with each character's kit and playstyle out of the way, let's really talk about the point of the video. How Cloak and Dagger was the redesign for Moira we never really got. At first glance, Cloak and Dagger might mirror some aspects of Moira's kit. The main one is Cloak's damage being damn near identical to Moira's, almost down to the range. But if you think about it, Cloak and Dagger answers all the annoyances that Moira carried for other players. Let's take her, let's say, annoyingly long reach. While yes, Cloak's damage range is very generous, much like Moira's in Overwatch, he doesn't get Moira's lifesteal abilities, or any healing for that matter, while you're in Cloak form, and he doesn't have an escape that's as fast as Moira's. He has his Dark Teleportation, but that lasts for a mere second and a half, with slow movement in comparison. This might sound completely nonsensical, but if you consider how easy it is for Moira to damage and dash, it leaves Cloak a lot more vulnerable in comparison. His lack of speed on his escape means you have to be careful when and how you use it. This causes people, like me, to rethink how Cloak and Dagger is played, since they're not really a one-for-one copy of Moira, if at all. Instead, what people found out is if you're getting dive while still in Dagger form, you can throw down your right click, then switch to Cloak, so that you have that healing bubble while you fight, all while still having to make sure you're still in that bubble too. Compare this to Moira dealing damage to either get a kill, heal with lifesteal, and recharge your healing, only to then get out without any consequences. It's clear to see why someone would dislike her for her playstyle, skill issue or not. Another example would be their ultimate, and Moira's Coalescence is not only just a beam, she also gets self-healing and a speed boost while in it. This can allow her to not only keep herself up in serious situations, but she can keep the team sustained with relative ease given there isn't a Doomfist punching her and stunning her out of the ult. If we switch over to Rivals, Cloak and Dagger's Eternal Bond carries the same properties of heal and damage combo, but changes it in a way that makes it much easier to waste the ability if not used correctly. Cloak and Dagger's ultimate is pretty simple in nature, but can be used in multiple scenarios like zone control, making enemies' lives more difficult to traverse the map, or allowing your teammates and you to not die by spamming the same area and getting everyone to group up in said area. Two ultimates that have similar damage and healing properties, just different ways of using them, allowing people who like Moira's kit to get a familiar feel, but having that change of learning something new. So, in saying all this, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't think Moira is a bad support by any means, and I personally think that Rivals gives a fresh spin on heroes we've already known and love on Overwatch. It was just hard not seeing the comparisons when having played either game, so I figured I would do a video on it. But I just want to say thank you for spending time and watching the video, and I will lead with the outro. Have a good one, guys.
You're fine. Get in there.
Get Penny. Nice.
Got it.